Yeah, it was a strange affair, really, wasn't it? I think it's unusual to see Leicester against a team that are, not traditionally in the top six, one of the, in brackets, elite clubs, setting their stall out to be as defensively secure as they possibly can, not to commit and get exposed. Against the likes of Brighton, you would think, it's a bit of a backward step, we're not about that. It was against the nature of the players, against Brendan Rodgers' nature of how he wants to play, but he realises that the situation is such that it requires, sort of change of tact, possibly in the short term, and they've allowed Brighton to come here, dictate the pace of the play, dictate the rhythm of the game. They look composed in doing so, but Leicester, I said it before the game, they just sort of had a feel, not trying to be clever, in hindsight, etc. Or I didn't really know what to expect, but I thought surely the players must be hurt by what has happened recently. Must be frustrated because they've had opportunities to pick up points, to do better than they have, and they've let it slip for whatever reason. And I just thought they would have I said about it, Brighton towards the end of this game, but Leicester have the bit between the teeth today. The determination was there. The fluency in their play was probably never going to be there. It's not that period of time for Leicester City right now. They are struggling a bit, but they rolled their sleeves up, they battled away together, and they put in a really gritty performance. The best players on the pitch, top 4 or 5 of them, were Brighton players, individually. But collectively, Leicester didn't let that affect them. And they've come through, nearly got themselves a great victory. Brighton deserved something from the spoils, I think it's fair to say, but going forward. But listen, that could be a valuable point. It stops the rot a little bit from Leicester's point of view. We've got something to build from.
Leicester players depart down the tunnel. Which of those players, Matt, gets your nod as man of the match?
Yeah, not easy to be fair, because I mentioned there the best individual players for me were the vast majority of them Brighton players. Dunk, Caicedo, Mitoma, it's probably one or two others as well, touches of class from McAllister as well, and Gross at times. They were the players that sort of caught the eye individually. And I'm thinking through the Leicester team, who was a standout player? I find it difficult to pick one. I think first half, the boys mentioned it, Harvey Barnes, without being totally convincing, was a threat. I'll give it Harvey. He could do with a boost, he got the winner. No, sorry, what nearly was the winner. I keep forgetting that Brighton have equalised. But he got the goal that put Leicester in front. Good finish, stuck it away nicely. It wasn't his best game, but it wasn't about being eye-catchingly brilliant for individuals today. It was a team effort to get that point, and they worked very hard for it. Spin a coin, take your pick, isn't it? But I'll give it Harvey Barnes.
And at that point, it's time to bring in the boys in the studio, full time from here inside King Power Stadium. Leicester 2, Brighton 2.
Thank you very much, John. Oh, so nearly Leicester's first win of the season, but a very late goal for Brighton means the spoils are shared here at King Power Stadium. 2-2 it finished. Jerry, what's your assessment of that?
Oh, got it for the lads. Great effort.
So close, wasn't it?
Yeah. We spoke about it half time. Score the first goal and see what happens. Fair play to Brighton. They're a very good team. They piled the pressure on Leicester. Struggled in the second half to get any control really in the game. But they got that goal. Frustrating the way the second goal was conceded. They had a couple of opportunities to get the ball clear. They tried to play the way out of trouble yet again. And Brighton, fair play to them, they were on the front foot, picked it up, recycled it. And, it's a great header. That's a proper header into the bottom corner. Danny Ward has absolutely no chance of that. So you've got to give Brighton credit, but on the flip side, when you go 2-1 in front, you've done all that hard work. You're out in your feet. A lot of players would have been out in their feet there. So yeah, you've got to give Brighton credit for getting back in the game. But yeah, I mean, it's a point. You know, I said Brighton would win this game. Thankfully, as usual, my prediction was wrong. So that's one positive. I'm going to have to keep saying that. But yeah, I think when you go 2-1 up and it's that stage of the game and you concede, especially when you have an opportunity to get the ball clear, then it is frustrating. But that's football.
Yep, a point stops the losing run though, doesn't it?
It does. It's just frustrating by you get yourself into a winning position and then at the end you concede. So at the same time it does stop the rot. 2 goals scored at home, a decent point against a very good side. The way they worked the ball was excellent. I just felt from a Leicester perspective there was a little bit of fear after getting 2-1 in front, found themselves in a winning position. It was like, can we hold them? And I think at that time just naturally sat in too much and allowed too much pressure, and eventually that pressure was forced into a goal. But even before then, Brighton had some decent chances. You'd probably think they had the lion's share of the chances. So in the end, Leicester will take the point.
Yeah, I think if they were probably offered that even at half-time, Jerry, maybe even before the game, they'd have taken it. The fact that it came as late as it came.
That's frustration, yeah, absolutely, when you go in front. You know, we'd be sat here probably less frustrated if Leicester had come from behind the snatcher point.
Yeah.
But that, you know, that's the mentality you have to have if you're going to win games of football. You have to feel that frustrating to a certain degree when you go in front. No, as good as Brighton were in that second half, you know, they literally pegged us in. But I'm not saying Leicester looked comfortable, but they'd obviously dealt with the majority of what Brighton had thrown at them. Danny Ward again pulling off a couple of really good saves from point blank range. And for me, the frustration is the opportunities to get the ball clear in the lead up to the goal. That's where my frustration lies. Trying to play your way out under pressure instead of just putting your boot through it, just even an up and under, whether it goes back towards your own goal or towards the opposition goal. And it's a clearance of sorts, but all it does is give you a couple of seconds to reset. And because you don't clear the ball when they have an opportunity, you know, Brighton, and this is where Brighton were good, they were on the front foot and got on top of Leicester, you know, and smothered them. And on this occasion, you know, everything came right for them for that equalising goal. But all of that, you mean, it's a, you know, performance-wise, the attitude of the players, absolutely spot on.
Matt Elliott has come and joined us inside the studio in the warmth, Matt.
Much needed.
Yeah. What's your assessment? You've had a little bit of time to have a think, have a listen to these two about that. A point gained, 2 points dropped. What do you think?
It's a bit of both, if that is the case. I mean, you know, being in a winning position with that little time to go, whoever you're up against, you're hoping, stroke expecting, you can see it out, aren't you? You know, and they battled away. You could see the determination was there. Like Jamie Vardy, when he was walking off the pitch, was sort of not finger wagging, but he was like pointing and encouraging the teammates to stick at it, keep going, boys. And you got to be hopeful that you can see it through. There were going to be, you know, scrapes and situations because, you know, Brighton were up in the ante a little bit, but yeah. So listen, before the game, you wouldn't turn down a point, but at home you're always hopeful you're going to get that win. But being in that position, it's got to be frustrating. But then you look at it, I suppose, being realistic over the game as a whole, Brighton deserves something out of that for me. Yeah, Leicester battled away, worked hard, had some situations themselves, but not. I think if you're honest, you'd have to say if they won that game, there's an element of fortune about it, but the harder you work, the luckier you get. You make your own luck, and Leicester almost did that.
And the luck is the fact that the ball hit the post and went in, really, from a Brighton's header point of view.
Yeah.
On another day, that could hit the post and come out.
Well, yeah. I suppose you can say that in any situation, can't you? You know, you could say it was, you know, magnificent accuracy by Ferguson to stick the header where he did. I mean, it was a good goal, excellent header, wasn't it? But
you weren't overly shocked when Brighton got back into it, because although they didn't pepper Danny Ward's goal, they didn't cause too many problems. They were like pretty around the edges and stuff, but not too sort of dangerous in front of goal in terms of opportunities. But they're an impressive side, aren't they? They're in good form. You could see that by the way they came strutting into the King Power. Their supporters came in their hordes and they got behind their team, and that was a tough game for Leicester to face today, and I thought they applied themselves extremely well.
Well, they did, and again that's why it is equally and even more frustrating that they weren't able to hold on for all 3 points.
It is, but then, as Matt said, on the balance of play, you'd probably think Brighton had the better the chances. Thinking of that one where March slipped and missed from 4 or 5 yards out. There's the McAllister effort. The Danny Ward's pulled off a
couple of good saves. Can't
really remember their goalie producing many saves. Obviously the goal, and Harvey's one from a set play, which is good to score from. Leicester don't tend to score too many from set plays, so that's a positive. But then you just think, after the goal, did they sit in too much? As Jerry said, when the ball's hooked on or you play percentage football, you've got to push up behind that. I think Leicester just a little bit negative, but that's also at the same time, when you've got the lead, you sort of hold on to what you've got. But if the ball does go forward, you've got to push on, forwards push on, midfield get behind that. Defensive backline needs to push on, and then anything over the top, Danny Ward can sweep round. But you sort of protect what you've got. And as much as Brighton probably didn't create too much after Leicester's second goal, then you're encouraging the attacks, and then in the end they've probably got a deserved point out of it, didn't they? As much as it's frustrating, I think Leicester would accept the point, and it was a battle point, but I think with a bit more belief and confidence, Leicester could have really seen it out. But that's probably where they're at the minute. It stops another defeat, scoring again at home, and getting something out of a game against a very good team.
Yeah, I think, just adding to what Matt's saying, I think you've got to look at it over a broad spectrum here. I think, we sat here a couple of weeks ago, Leicester played Fulham, absolutely wiped the floor with Fulham, and came off the pitch losing the game. And today, on the flip side of that, Brighton come here, especially in the second half, probably did what Leicester did to Fulham in that second half. Brighton today to Leicester, and Leicester got a point out of it. Where, if Brighton had went on to win that game, nobody would have had any complaints. And that's, my initial frustration was about the way the second goal was conceded. But when you look at it overall, then you got to say it's a point earned in hindsight, and hindsight's one. And now I've made my mouth, I've said my piece basically. But when you analyse it and you look back at the games here at King Power, i.e. the Fulham game, where you're walking off the pitch as a player thinking, have we not got something out of that game? Well, today you got something when probably Brighton should have, took all 3 points and definitely deserved the point.
Matt, he was saying, obviously, in their last 20 minutes when Leicester had taken the lead, obviously they sat back a little bit. That's understandable when you're on a run that you're on. I think if Leicester are full of confidence, maybe the Leicester of a couple of seasons ago, they could go on and win that game 3-1, 4-1, don't they? But it's just the way they were at today. That's probably understandable, the way that they played the last 20.
Yeah, I think, at the moment, and then you're thinking it's time to make some changes, and it probably came slightly too late. Maybe 1 or 2 more. Madison come on, and
Daka maybe a little bit.
Daka maybe could have come on a little bit, and so that's your fresh legs, and what that enables those fresh legs to do, to the point that Matt was saying, is you can then put a press on earlier and higher up the pitch. We're saying put the opposition under pressure. Now you've seen in that second half, Dunk having lots of time, lots of space, thread a couple of lovely balls. If you've got fresh legs on the pitch, you can get up to the ball quicker as a player coming in off the bench. And then that doesn't give them as much time to pick those sort of passes. It gives the players behind your forward players an opportunity to go in earlier and win those challenges when the ball is played forward. But because everybody was sitting back and allowing Brighton time to come forward with the ball, almost not walking pace but jogging pace, and then pick passes. Then it just repeatedly keeps your backs against the wall. And so bringing fresh legs on a little bit earlier would have, afforded Leicester to put a higher press on a little bit sooner.
You can see why they were sitting as deep as they were, though, Matt, because it had worked up until the 88th minute. But as Jerry says, that maybe there were a few instances where the ball could have gone into a channel for Adaka to chase.
Yeah, I think you need to sort of mix it up a little bit. I think it was quite a surprise, really, that Leicester found themselves ahead in the game. Really, the way that Brighton dictated play, they were allowed to by Leicester. It was an intentional ploy. Yeah, and it's gone against their natural way of trying to press at the right times, etc. And today they were just conceding that possession, weren't they? The two centre halves could have it as long as they wanted. Dangerous thing when you got Lewis Dunk with the ball at his feet. Picked out some superb passes today, but yeah, it was about you could see it. It was quite clear. That Vardy and Dewsbury Hall were, and then Maddison. Yeah, they were like working off each other, just trying to make sure that Caicedo didn't get too much room on the ball, and so they weren't being played through the middle, although that did happen occasionally. Such was the quality of Brighton's play, but it was as Jerry says, it was quite slow paced, wasn't it? It was all manageable. It was across the face of them, and then every now and then there was sort of an injection of pace, and they would cause a problem, but that was like few and far between. And generally the ploy worked, didn't it? It wasn't. Leicester weren't set up today to play nice, pretty, attractive football, and that's the sort of players they've got. Certainly their fair share of players who like to play a nice style. But it wasn't about that today. It was about knuckling down, being compact, minimising the opportunities for the opposition, and then capitalising on, as best as possible, on the few chances or the few situations that you will engineer, because they didn't really construct many. They just sort of appeared out of, a breakdown in play from Brighton or Leicester winning the ball, and then it was like a surge forward. They didn't keep the ball for too long and play, attractive total football, if you like. And it was against their natural grain, wasn't it? But well done to them for changing. Jerry mentioned there that changes needed doing, needed making. But that was like in terms of a personnel, but also a structure of how they played, because what they've been doing wasn't working. At the start of the season, I felt like, for instance, the fullbacks were going bombing forward, like playing as wingers almost, and Leicester were getting exposed all the time, and it was happening again and again and again. Eventually they changed it, just like, okay, let's forfeit a bit of our attacking venture and pull the fullbacks in, back to basics sort of thing. There was a little bit of that today.
Yeah, there was a lot more, seemed to be a resoluteness today, Jerry, obviously until the 88th minute.
As Matt said, it was obviously a tactical play in that second half to come out and not give space in behind, let them have it in front of them. And that's fine, yeah. And they had a couple of shots on target. On another day, one of I think it was three shots. Solly March slips over, great chance for him, and then two good saves from Danny Ward. And on another day, one of those chances would have went in the back of the net, but because it didn't, and because Leicester had sort of ridden that storm, even though the pressure was still on, you're thinking today's our day. And it's just, again, the frustration for me creeps in when you've worked that hard. They've given everything today to players. I can't fault the players. I can't say that. And it wasn't pretty at times, and it wasn't silky football the way we're used to. And that's probably down to the way Leicester set up in the second half. They couldn't get any real momentum in the game. It was sporadic at best. But the way you give that goal away, you just can't get away from it. And I know I need to, and I will do eventually. But when you're given an opportunity to clear or challenge for a ball, when you've worked that hard, and that opportunity comes your way, and you pass it up, it's almost unforgivable. In my mind, I know it's a different era now, but in my mind it's almost unforgivable because of the work rate,
and what you've done for the last 88 minutes.
And keeping it solid, and working so hard to keep it against a really good team.
Next up, obviously, is the FA Cup, Walsall away, and then it's a couple of weeks until Villa away back in the Premier League. Obviously, that becomes a huge game again for Leicester. They're all pretty big now anyway, but there's 2 weeks where maybe there'll be more incomings. We don't know, obviously. There'll be some of those injured players coming back. They can build on this point today against Brighton.
They can build on the point, like the boys have said. The tactics probably different to what you'd normally expect against Brighton. You normally associate them with a top team, a Man City. So we've seen it applied before, but enough to get a point so they can build on that. Hopefully more injured players come back into the fold and they're fit. Obviously Dennis Pratt injured today, which is disappointing, but you've got Keenan Dewsbury-Hall back in. James Maddison's had a few minutes, 20 odd minutes or so that's encouraging. Christensen, new signing. Will there be any more? Hopefully there will be. And then bodies coming back in, and then got a full and fit, healthy squad to pick from before what will be a massive game against Aston Villa. But that's 2 weeks away, and yes, the cup's a welcome distraction, but it'll only be a welcome distraction if Leicester go and get the job done and go into the next round, because it could be a potential huge upset, so they need to be fully prepared for that, for what's going to be a tough FA Cup tie.
Yeah, it could be key getting some of those players back in particular, Matt, couldn't it? Obviously, those ones that have injured. The likes of James Maddison, obviously, he's been injured. He got 20 minutes today, didn't he? He's now got 2 weeks. If you don't play him at Walsall, if you give him half an hour at Walsall, whatever it is, he's now got a good build-up to that Villa game in a few weeks.
Yeah, Maddison, coming into that scenario, he got on the ball a fair few times, didn't he? A couple of fouls, that set piece right at the end. Could have been the moment of the match, wasn't it? It wasn't to be, but yeah, I think just him, the prospect of having him to come on, regardless of the state of play, was, an encouragement, maybe even an incentive for the Leicester players to keep digging in there, because they know that he can come on and make a difference. But also, I think Dewsbury-Hall as well brought some extra energy there for the hour or so that he was on, and in turn, I thought Thomas, more so Barnes, looked more like their old selves as well. Barnes, without playing his best game, but all of a sudden he was getting fed more at the right time, right sort of service from Dewsbury-Hall. So that was a massive positive down that left-hand side. So but these new players, not new players, but players coming back from injury, obviously a boost. But Leicester they've shown what they can do, because sometimes their application and their determination and concentration has been questioned at times. Some of the sort of lacklustre performances that people have seen, and I think that they've shown what they can do. They can apply themselves. They have that capability. They knuckled down today, but now the test is, can you do that again, if you have to, repeatedly, and then develop the quality that you possess, bring that into it as well. But like Matty says there, against Aston Villa, they're going to have to churn out a similar performance again today. They can't relax and think, right, we worked our socks off at the King Power, right, let's go to Villa and start trying knocking it around a little bit. First and foremost, get the basics right, and then they can grow themselves again, and become the attractive side that we know they are capable of. But if they want to get a result, they're going to have to fight every bit as hard as they did today in a couple of weeks' time. Never mind the game against Walsall.
Quick word on Harvey Barnes. You gave him your man of the match today, of course, and he got the goal. That's good for his confidence, surely.
I'm not convinced I got the right decision there or not. I don't know what the boys did. I didn't think so, but for me, no one stood out. I just thought Harvey was. I thought Harvey was a threat in the first half, without being totally convincing. But he was an outlet for Leicester, and he got I keep saying the winner. He got what we thought was going to be the winner. So I was like, do you know what? He could do a little bit of a boost. Not that he's probably listening to what I say, but I thought he can have the man of the match.
No one's listening to
who are you going for, Tags?
I don't know.
There you
It's
go.
not my decision today.
Hang on, look. So he doesn't know, but he just wants to disagree with me anyway.
Correct.
Yeah, I guess a tough one. It would have been a different story had Leicester held on. Then there's a few candidates, isn't there?
Well, yeah, no, I think Mark Albrighton deserves a mention, you know, as well. I think Luke Thomas deserves a mention. I thought he was steady away today, Luke. You know, he didn't have the best of
Had
games.
his hand in the second goal.
Yeah, I think the second goal, no one's really mentioned it, but Jamie Vardy and Luke Thomas do absolutely fantastic. You know.
What's Luke Thomas doing up there?
Well, exactly, but
fair play to him, yeah.
let me explain it to you, because we always talk about it. No, but seriously, it's a serious point, because we're always talking about in a defensive mode, you know, going and challenging and putting people off. Don't give them free headers. Put them off as best you can so they can't get a free header. And they've done that in attacking sense. So Brighton don't get a clean header to clear the ball. And actually I think Luke Thomas just flicks it on slightly, but Jamie Vardy rises, it puts the full back off. Luke Thomas following in behind him, puts the defender off, and it gets a little clip by whoever and falls right at the feet of Harvey Barnes. So them two deserve a mention for that.
Yeah, it was good. Did well as well, Harvey at the back post, didn't need to anticipate. You'd have been proud of that sort of goal.
Yeah, poacher's goal. Right place, right time, no one picking them up, decent finish, but it starts, what we said at half time, to get the corner starts with a ball down the side by Yuri. Jamie Vardy's onto it. I think they work it over to Harvey Barnes for a shot, it was blocked. And then the corner goes in and you've got to attack them balls and, like you say, make it difficult. Can you get a little glancing header? Fortunately, the first ball goes in, little touch, and then Barnes is on the end of it, tucking it home from close range. So it starts that ball down the side from the initial one. But yeah, probably Harvey Barnes gets a goal, so you can mention him. Mark Albrighton got a goal as well, worked really hard, which you'd expect from him. Luke Thomas again, steady away, he sort of defended the back post well a couple of times.
Yeah, he did, brilliant.
He did well, but there wasn't too many standouts. It was one of them where you just sort of grind, get through it, but I'd always probably pick someone who scores a goal, so I wouldn't say too much.
Well, that's pretty much all we've got time for here on Matchday Live on LCFC TV. There's plenty more to come though for us. Obviously we'll be assessing this draw with Brighton on extra time on Monday evening. You can join us from 6 p.m. That'll be with Matt Elliott, Ewan Roberts and Tony Cotty. We'll be back again for Matchday Live in a week's time as the Foxes travel to Walsall in the 4th round of the FA Cup. That's an early kick-off, 12:30 kick-off. That means we're on air from 11:30, and you can listen to Leicester's The Place, Matt Elliott and Jerry Taggart in conversation with their old buddy Steve Guppy. Thank you very much to everybody that has tuned in. Thanks to Matt, to Jerry and to Matty as well for joining us today on what was very nearly Leicester's first win of 2023. It is a point though here at King Power Stadium as the Foxes move on to next week.